Welcome back. We're about to embark on an international trip, and we've been putting together for ourselves a list of all of the things that we should be doing before we go and make sure that we take with us. And we thought that it could be really valuable for other people to hear that, so we thought we'd share it with you.
And if you get anything out of this video, we'd love it if you gave us a thumbs up. And of course, we want to invite you to subscribe to our channel. We release new content every single Sunday. And of course, turn on that notification bell so you never miss a thing.
The first and foremost thing you have to take on an international trip is your visa or passport.
Absolutely. Now, not every place that you're going requires a visa, but these rules are changing all the time. So we recommend that you do your research ahead of time and then right before you leave, just to make sure you've got everything covered.
We were told when we were going to Europe this year that we were going to need a special visa, but we don't. They've postponed that. But we do absolutely have to take our passports.
And another thing that you need to think about with your passport is that its expiration date is longer than 6 months from the day that you return from your trip. If you get to the airport and your passport is expiring soon, you may get a sad surprise when you're not allowed on the plane. The second thing on our international travel checklist is travel insurance. That's right, it is so important to be insured of the cost of your trip, but also for things like healthcare if you're traveling abroad.
Yeah, so we've gone on several cruises, and I've heard a lot of horror stories of people who didn't have any kind of travel insurance, got sick on those ships, and then their bill at the end of the trip was in the tens of thousands of dollars.
You don't want that at all. And I've actually had to use travel insurance in the past when we had a trip booked during March of 2020. Of course, it got canceled due to the pandemic, but we got all of our money back and were able to retake that trip 2 years afterwards.
Our number 3 tip is to take the proper health precautions. Depending on where you're going in the world, you may need to get some specific vaccinations. You should research that ahead of time and make sure to get it done with plenty of time so you don't have to miss your trip because you didn't get a vaccination.
Another thing that you might consider in that realm is to take your medications in their original bottles with your prescription label on it attributed to your name. Especially if you're traveling internationally, you do not want to get stopped in the airport because you've got pills in a pill caddy and it doesn't have all of your prescription information on it.
And make sure you bring more than enough pills for your trip. What if you get stuck at the end of your trip and have to stay for an extra day or two? Make sure you have enough medication to last you a little longer than your planned trip.
That's a really great point, Laura. I just talked to my pharmacist about the trip that we're taking and the timing of it, and they're going to work with me to get extra ahead of time so that I don't run out while I'm on our trip. Next on the checklist is flight and accommodations. You're going to want to book your flight, of course, and then check it a couple days before you're leaving, just to make sure nothing's changed. Of course, most times the airline will reach out to you if there's an itinerary change, but you don't, again, want to be surprised when you get to the airport.
Make sure you book all of your accommodations before you go. Now, there's lots of people who like to just wing it, but I'm not those people. We're going to have a set schedule planned for ourselves, so we at least know where we're sleeping every night, and we've got that locked in. So our number 5 tip is to make sure you know how you're going to pay for things when you're in that other country. So you can go to your bank sometimes and request money from the country that you're going to ahead of time. You usually have to pre-order this, but that's going to get a much better exchange rate than, say, at the airport when you get off your flight. Another great way to do it is just to use one of those travel credit cards, and it's going to allow you to pay in the currency that you're in, and it's going to do the exchange for you at a really good rate.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that you do it that way. When you go to pay, they'll ask if you want to pay in, say, euros versus USD. Always pick euros because your bank's exchange rate will be the better deal. Another thing that you should think about is notifying your bank of your travel plans before you go. You don't want them to flag you for fraud because you've got a charge in a foreign country that they didn't know about. So I always make sure to notify my bank in advance. However, I do have a travel credit card that I really like that doesn't require you to do that. The entire purpose of the credit card is to go travel and earn those miles and points, and so they don't require you to notify them. But check your financial institution for their own individual rules. Next on the checklist is to create a travel itinerary, and you know me that this speaks to my planner's heart. I have a really detailed itinerary that I share with everybody that's going on the trip with us that has things like our hotels, reservation, confirmation codes, our flight information, what we're planning on doing each day, any dinner reservations as well. I put that all in one document and make plenty of copies so that we all have access to them.
And make sure you leave a copy here with friends and family in case something happens happens. You want to be able to reach out to someone who can help you in a pinch.
And it's good to include some emergency phone numbers, especially where you're staying, at the hotel, or how to get a hold of a cruise line, just in case.
And our next tip has to do with packing. We like to create a detailed packing list for ourselves. Now, not everybody does that, but it's a great way to make sure you're not forgetting anything and you're not packing a bunch of things and carting them all over the world and not even wearing them.
That's right. We do encourage you to try to pack light if you're flying internationally. First of all, some of the airlines have different size restrictions for your carry-on luggage, so you need to check that out ahead of time. And if you have to check it, just go ahead and check it, because it's better to have the stuff that you need with you and just pay a little bit of extra for that checked bag. But they will have stores in your destination as well, so don't fret if you accidentally forget something at home. Next up on the checklist is to pre-plan your transportation, especially when you've got your luggage with you. So if you're going from the airport to a hotel or a cruise port, it's just a good idea to have that transportation figured out ahead of time.
We've definitely made that mistake before where we didn't, and we will never make that mistake again. And it's always a good idea to really research how the transportation is going to happen and get that figured out. And that's a great thing to put on that itinerary, is the numbers for those transportation places. What if your phone's not working right when you get off the plane?
And make sure that you are talking to your driver ahead of time about what the charges are going to be before you get into the vehicle. Get that agreed ahead of time so that you're not surprised once you get to your destination.
Next up is communication. How are you going to communicate with people while you're on your trip? You need to get this figured out ahead of time too. Does your cell phone carrier offer something like ours does, where it's just an extra $10 a day to use it in another country? Is that the most convenient way to do it? Yes. But if that's not the right answer for you, there's lots of different options, including eSIMs that you can download ahead of time, or SIM cards that you can purchase once you get to the country that you're in. And those work well too and are definitely more budget friendly.
Something else that you want to consider ahead of time for communication is downloading maps to your phone or translation apps. So if you don't have service, you can still find your way around.
And Carol's done a great job with that offline map for our upcoming vacation. I feel very confident that we're going to have all of the maps and communication that we need so that we're not lost in those European cities. So something you really want to think about before you go is your safety and security. Make sure you take copies, both digital and on paper, of your passport and your different documents, because what if your phone gets stolen, or if the documents get stolen? What if someone takes your purse and your passport was in there? If you have a digital copy on your phone, you're going to be a lot better off.
And it's a great idea to leave copies at home with someone that you trust, just in case. Again, if your passport gets stolen, it would be very helpful to be able to get the information off of it so that you can get another one and get a return flight back to our country. Next up on the checklist is language and culture. If you're traveling to a foreign country, it is a great tip to learn a few phrases that you may need to do, like please, thank you, where's the bathroom? All of that, it could come in so handy. And I know that when I traveled to France, people really appreciated the fact that I took some time to learn French, their language, before I went, and didn't just assume that they spoke English.
And take a minute to learn a little bit about the culture and customs in that country, because you'll be surprised. What's completely acceptable in one country is definitely not in another, and you don't want to make a big faux pas just because you're a tourist. So next is to make sure that your home is prepared for while you are gone. Make sure to button everything up and get all the doors and windows locked, and you might want to have someone come by and check it from time to time. Get your mail stopped, or have someone come by and pick up your mail so it doesn't look like the house is vacant.
You could also set up timers on your lights, or have something like we do with a Ring camera or other security cameras throughout our property so that we can check on those remotely no matter where we are.
And if you have any bills that are coming due while you're gone, make sure to set up automatic payments so those aren't late. You don't want to get a late payment just because you were on vacation.
Next up on the checklist is to think about your four-legged friends. If you are a pet parent like we are, this has to be top of your mind. Let's show you our little puppies. We've got Daisy, Wrigley, and Maggie, and they are the light of our lives. What we do when we travel is we get a house sitter that is also a pet sitter. So they're covering things by taking in our mail, but also taking good care of our dogs while we are out of the country. And it is important to leave very detailed instructions on any feeding or activity or medicine that the dogs may need so that they are well taken care of.
But it's great to know that everything's taken care of once you go, and your four-legged friend is set with a pet sitter that can take good care of them, and they'll hardly even miss you.
So we're going to give a shout out to our pet sitters, Mandy and Sean, and Emma and Colton. You all are rock stars.
And the last thing on our checklist is to make sure you have your emergency contacts with you. You never know what's going to happen, and you want to be able to get a hold of people. Don't rely on them to be just digital. Make sure that you have both digital and paper copies of those emergency contact numbers, because you never know what's going to happen.
And especially if you're traveling in a foreign country, you may want to have the number for the local U.S. Embassy, just in case anything happens to your passport. You can get some help in getting back to the United States.
And we're going on a cruise. One of the great tips that I've heard recently is to make sure you get the Harbor Master's number, because if you're going to miss the cruise, they can help facilitate that. And that's our list that we go through before we go on a big trip. But do you have anything to add? We'd love to hear it in the comment section below. Don't forget, we will answer you.
And if you found any value in this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We certainly appreciate it, and we put out new content every single week.
We do, and we've got a link to our travel tips playlist just below us. So click on that to see the rest of our videos that have to do with this. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Core4 Adventures.
Bye!